President Donald Trump on the world stage touting a major victory while also facing urgent crises that threaten to overshadow that achievement. The president meeting with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer today after the U.S. announced a significant trade agreement with the European Union. But much of their talk, as Trump himself acknowledged, focused on the humanitarian emergency in Gaza.
Did you know that even Trump is surprised by Israel's new move in Gaza? So what could that be? President Donald Trump was reportedly taken aback by recent Israeli military operations in Gaza and Syria, prompting direct calls to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address the situations. So, what is the actual buzz about? Recently, President Donald Trump was reportedly taken aback by recent Israeli military operations in Gaza and Syria, prompting direct calls to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address the situations, according to White House officials. The incidents have highlighted what sources describe as growing friction between the two leaders, despite their historically strong alliance. One of the key moments came last Thursday when an Israeli strike hit the only Catholic church in Gaza, drawing swift criticism from Trump. The president personally contacted Netanyahu to express his dissatisfaction and urged the Israeli leader to issue a public statement acknowledging the strike as a mistake.
House, where it's 5:21 in the nation's capital. President Trump at the White House on Friday said that 10 more hostages will be released from Gaza, quote, very shortly. He is saying this as the White House is pushing for a 60-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Trump saying, quote, we got most of the hostages back.
Similarly, Trump was caught off guard by Israeli airstrikes targeting government buildings in Damascus, Syria, at a time when his administration has been actively working to stabilize the war-torn country and support its new leadership under former rebel leader Ahmed al-Sharaa. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed the developments, stating that while Trump maintains a productive relationship with Netanyahu, the recent actions in Gaza and Syria were not coordinated with the U.S. in advance. The president enjoys a good working relationship with Prime Minister Netanyahu and stays in frequent communication with him. However, he was surprised by the bombing in Syria as well as the strike on the Catholic Church in Gaza, Leavitt told reporters on Monday. She emphasized that Trump moved quickly to address both incidents, ensuring corrective measures were taken. The situation has further underscored the delicate balance the Trump administration is trying to maintain in the region. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been actively engaged in diplomatic efforts to ease tensions in Syria, where the U.S. has recently relaxed sanctions and backed al-Sharaa's government. The unexpected Israeli strikes have added complexity to these efforts, raising questions about coordination between the two allies. As the White House navigates these challenges, the dynamic between Trump and Netanyahu remains under close scrutiny. While both leaders have historically aligned on key issues, these recent events suggest potential strains in their partnership, particularly when it comes to military decisions affecting sensitive geopolitical landscapes.
The official declined to discuss the focus of the visit and spoke on condition of being anonymous to discuss plans that have yet to be finalized. We do know bright and early this Sunday morning, President Donald Trump put this out on Truth Social. I want you to take a good look at your screen as we're following this breaking news. The commander-in-chief says, quote, make the deal in Gaza, get the hostages back.
The administration's response will likely shape not only U.S.-Israel relations, but also broader stability in the Middle East. President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have long maintained a complex relationship, one defined by strategic partnership, but also marked by moments of tension and mutual skepticism, according to sources familiar with their dealings. Despite their political alignment, the two leaders have never developed a close personal bond, and their interactions have occasionally been shadowed by underlying distrust. However, their alliance appeared stronger than ever earlier this month when Netanyahu visited the White House, where he made a highly publicized gesture of support by presenting Trump with a letter nominating him for the Nobel Peace Prize, a move seen as reinforcing their united front following Israel's joint air campaign with the U.S. against Iran this summer. Trump had hoped Netanyahu's 4-day visit to Washington would bring a breakthrough in securing a Gaza ceasefire, including the release of hostages held by Hamas and a substantial increase in humanitarian aid to the besieged Palestinian territory. In the days leading up to the meeting, the U.S. president repeatedly expressed optimism that a deal could be reached within the week. Yet Netanyahu left the U.S. without announcing any agreement, leaving negotiations in limbo. Nearly a week after mediators presented Hamas with the latest ceasefire and hostage release proposal, the militant group's leaders in Gaza have yet to issue a formal response, according to two sources familiar with the talks. Hamas released a statement Monday, claiming it was working around the clock to reach an agreement. But the prolonged delay has only deepened frustrations as civilian casualties continue to mount. The ongoing conflict has drawn increasing concern from Trump, particularly after last week's Israeli airstrike on a Gaza church killed 3 people, an incident that prompted the president to personally intervene. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt emphasized Trump's desire to see an end to the bloodshed, stating, "The president never likes to see innocent lives lost. He wants the killing to stop." At the same time, the administration has defended its efforts to facilitate aid into Gaza, even as international criticism grows over Israel's restrictive policies. Foreign ministers from 25 Western nations recently accused Israel of drip-feeding assistance into the Strip, while Gaza's health ministry reports that more than 1,000 people have died since late May in desperate attempts to access humanitarian supplies. The stalled ceasefire talks and escalating humanitarian crisis have placed additional strain on the Trump-Netanyahu relationship, testing the limits of their alliance at a critical moment. The White House has pushed back against growing international criticism of Israel's restrictions on humanitarian aid to Gaza, defending the Trump administration's role in facilitating relief efforts despite mounting civilian casualties. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt emphasized the president's personal involvement in enabling aid distribution, stating, "The president is the reason that aid is even being distributed in Gaza at all." Her comments came as foreign ministers from 25 Western nations jointly condemned what they described as Israel's deliberate drip feeding of essential supplies into the besieged territory, where local health authorities report more than 1,000 Palestinians have died while attempting to access humanitarian assistance since late May. Leavitt portrayed the administration as working to balance complex geopolitical realities with humanitarian concerns, noting that Trump wants to see this done in a peaceful manner where more lives are not being lost. The press secretary framed the current crisis as part of a broader regional challenge inherited from previous administrations, arguing that it's a very difficult and complicated situation that the president inherited because of the weakness of the last administration. This defense comes as the White House seeks to position Trump as actively pursuing peace while navigating the volatile aftermath of the Gaza conflict. The president wants to see peace, and he's been pretty clear on that, Leavitt reiterated, though she offered no specific timeline for when the administration expects to see tangible improvements in aid delivery or a reduction in violence. The statement reflects the administration's delicate diplomatic position, maintaining steadfast support for Israel while responding to international pressure over Gaza's worsening humanitarian situation. With global scrutiny intensifying on the pace and volume of aid reaching Palestinian civilians, the White House appears to be walking a fine line between defending its ally and addressing humanitarian concerns that have drawn condemnation from traditional Western partners. As the death toll continues to rise among civilians seeking food and medical supplies, the administration faces mounting questions about whether its current approach can effectively alleviate what international organizations describe as an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in the territory. The disturbing images now emerging from Gaza tell a story that humanitarian organizations have warned about for months: skeletal children with hollow eyes, lifeless bodies reduced to skin and bone, and families desperately searching for scraps of food. These heartbreaking scenes shouldn't surprise anyone who has followed the systematic restriction of aid into the territory, where basic survival has become a daily struggle for millions. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees recently underscored the cruel paradox of the situation, noting that people are being starved, while a few kilometers away, supermarkets are loaded with food, a stark illustration of the vast disparity between conditions in Israel and the humanitarian catastrophe unfolding in Gaza. While Gaza's children waste away from malnutrition, the contrast in priorities became painfully evident this week when Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's fast food preferences became a topic of discussion on a popular North American podcast. The revelation that Netanyahu favors Burger King's Whopper over McDonald's offerings, though seemingly trivial, struck many observers as shockingly tone-deaf given his government's tight control over food shipments into Gaza. As noted by Haaretz's U.S. correspondent, this casual burger chat consumed valuable time that could have addressed urgent questions about alleviating Gaza's starvation crisis or advancing ceasefire and hostage negotiations. The international community finds itself in a frustrating position, with world leaders viewing the same horrific images of starvation as the general public, yet appearing unable to compel Israel to significantly increase aid flows or restore proven UN distribution systems. While condemnation has grown more unified, including a joint statement from over 24 European foreign ministers criticizing Israel's drip feeding of aid and the inhumane killing of civilians, these words have yet to translate into meaningful change on the ground. Israel's foreign ministry dismissed the European criticism as disconnected from reality, even as medical workers in Gaza report children dying from preventable causes related to malnutrition and dehydration. So why is the world silent, and what will be Trump's next move? Let us know in the comments what you think of the whole situation, and if you want to stay on top of this, smash that like and subscribe button.